Here in Patent Free Library, there's a time machine, a place to explore the past. The Saginaw History and Genealogy Room is a non-circulating reference room containing many and varied resources for researching the history of Saginaw County and its residents. Here you can slip back, reading old newspapers, looking at vital records from Maine communities, marveling at some of the stereographic photographs. Let's peek inside the history room and see the extent of the collections. We have published material, archival materials, government reports, postcards and photographs, family genealogies and vital records, many town histories, Saginaw Preservation Inc.'s architectural surveys, and vertical files full of news articles, and microfilms of newspapers in Bath, maps, as well as city records, as you'll see in the coming tour. This tour is broken up into 3 different videos. This video will focus on the published materials on the shelves and vertical files of the history room. The second video will look at the electronic and microfilmed resources, while the third will concentrate on the archival holdings of the room. While the history room concentrates on the member communities of Patent Free Library, Bath, Woolwich, West Bath, Arousic, and Georgetown, there are also other materials in case your investigations take you to another part of Maine, or you want to know more about a general subject or the context of your research. So, let's have a tour of the room. Starting on the bookshelves to the left of the door as you enter, which is the west side of the history room, you'll notice the different sections or ranges of bookshelves are numbered. In Range 1 we have biographies, York deeds, for Saginaw County and Lincoln County used to be part of York, and early Maine court records. Remember, these various resources are in the Minerva catalog, so you can find whether we have something not only here, but remotely from your own computer. Many people come to browse our collections of Morse High School yearbooks found in Range 2. We have still other publications from the second Morse High School, but also the first Morse High School and Bath High School, which preceded both of those institutions. In Range 2, we also have books on maritime history that are general references, and still others that focus on some of the many shipyards that dotted Bath's shoreline on the Kennebec River. There are also books on Maine architecture and art. Range 3 starts with Maine poets, including Moses Owen, a Bath native who wrote and published poetry in the 19th century. Owen's poem on the returned battle flags of the Civil War was put up decades ago in the Hall of Flags at the Maine State Capitol. There are also some atlases, period publications, or historical in approach. But much of this range is taken up with annual reports from the communities of Arousic, Bath, Georgetown, Phippsburg, West Bath, and Woolwich. These include planning documents. These all continue into Range 4. The Bath reports, as you can see, begin in the 1860s, while those of the other communities generally begin in the 1970s. Also in Range 4 are some of the most popular resources in the history room, the Saginaw Preservation Inc., or SBI's architectural surveys of Bath. The first ones date from the late 1970s and cover most of the city. The second from around 2000, and this one focuses more closely on a portion of the South End, the north portion of the South End. Here you can find photographs, architectural descriptions, historical information on these structures. At the north end of the room are shelves for assorted publications, from those associated with Bath Historical Society to Owl's Head Transportation Museum, Maine Historical Society, the Georgetown Tide, the Maine Maritime Museum, SBI, and so forth. On the east, or Kennebec, river side of the history room are another 9 ranges of shelving. City directories for the city of Bath and nearby towns from 1867 to 2008 are in range 1. Not all years are here, but the directory was not published in every year, and we believe we have every published directory. These are very useful for the histories of structures, whether they were used as residences or places of business. But in the area of genealogy, they can provide addresses for families or the changing occupations of the family members, and even, as you can see with the first name on this page, a date of death, or further down the page, exactly to where a family has moved, and learn where your research needs to shift. Range 2 holds a selection of how-to books on genealogy, including the Red Book on Local Sources and The Source, both published by Ancestry, as well as a book about citing sources, accurately enough called Evidence Explained. But there are other books, such as Researching Irish Ancestors. This range also begins the large collection of family histories we have. Some of these books are formal publications. Some not so much, but collections of information and research that a family member has collected over years. There are self-published histories, photocopies, or typescripts, meaning a typed rather than handwritten document, copies of those family-created binders, volumes that begin with a single individual and delve into all of the descendants, a variety of materials. A list of the names represented in this section can be found elsewhere on this website as well as in Minerva. That list on the website also contains the names of the families that can be found in the vertical files. On range 4, Dr. Holt's Bath Families of the 19th Century is located, and this is one of the History Room's treasures. This is an 11-volume work with index of genealogy for more than 500 families in Bath. Dr. Alfred Holt began this in 1984, finishing in 2000. What makes this particularly useful is that Dr. Holt cited his sources. This has proved invaluable for genealogists, as well as house historians and other local history researchers. Below Dr. Holt's notebooks are other resources: published early probate records of Maine, also the Maine families of 1790. The Maine Genealogical Society is working its way through the 1790 census, detailing the family information of those state residents in a multi-volume set. Impressive work indeed. There are also the indices of the first 5 censuses of the state, and the large collection of published vital records from assorted Maine communities held by the History Room. Those vital records take up most of range 5, too. But then the books pertaining to different waves of migration to the United States begin, whether it is beginning with the Great Migration to New England in the 17th century or waves of French-Canadian immigration. There are also cemetery records, which focus on area cemeteries. Many of these were compiled in the 1970s by volunteers who walked these graveyards, recording the names, the dates, and the additional information found on those gravestones. For this reason, the cemetery office is always a good place to check for information, since gravestones are sometimes missing or were never erected for some individuals buried there. French-Canadian records continue into these shelves and on range 6, and there are also a variety of period sets on New England families and their genealogies. The bottom shelf of range 6 and continuing into range 7 are books that look at various wars: the Revolutionary War, graves of veterans, or a myriad of publications on the Civil War. They include the Adjutant General lists of enlisted men during the Civil War, as well as a copy of Bath's muster roll from the same time period. Some of these books are discussions of the war in general. Others are written by specific soldiers, including Thomas Hyde, a Bath resident and winner of the Congressional Medal of Honor for his service during the Civil War. There are also research notes collected about Sarah Sampson, a Bath nurse instrumental in the creation of the Bath Military and Naval Orphans Asylum, or the Children's Home. But most of Range 7, as well as Ranges 8 and 9, consist of local history books, published accounts of towns and cities across the state of Maine. Some are 19th century publications, and many are modern books. Particularly in the section devoted to Bath, we also have period publications meant to promote the city and the businesses, as well as the individuals of the community. Vertical files in the history room are separated into two sets, subject and family name. The subjects might range from Bath businesses in the 19th century to circuses, from Varney Mill Road to general Woolwich history. The biographical vertical files are also numerous, including the Sewell family, to Della-Fibcar and others. These files might include newspaper clippings, letters, typescripts, research notes, pamphlets, and the like. This particular file is on Liberty Bottling Company and includes information on the founder of the company as well as the company itself. Similar material will appear in the biographical files, which are organized alphabetically by family name. Other holdings of the history room, archival material, and microfilmed and electronic materials are covered in the other videos, Part 2 and 3 of this tour. So, come travel in our very own time machine and visit the Sagadaw History and Genealogy Room. The time machine is open Tuesday through Saturday, 12:30 to 4, but Saturdays change during the summer. The entire library is open on those days from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Come, go on a time machine.